Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is season 3, episode 23. And today it's going to actually be quite an interesting one simply because we are going to be intersecting the two topics that we have been exploring over the last few episodes already. First one being distressed properties, and the other one is raising funds. And so, on that note, once again, because I finally am able to sit back down or stay in front of a fixed computer and screen at this point. So I'm able to bring this back up and continuing on where we left off with distressed properties. So if you are confused about where we are right now, make sure you go back at least 6 or 7 episodes at this point, because I did start with distressed properties a few episodes back. And then because I've been on the road in Ontario here doing a bit of an Ontario tour with a number of TYT Connects. And so that's why the last few episodes have been more inspired by questions and statements and been a bit more casual. So today I'm back on this format and wanted to make sure that everybody understands how the two strategies, one being a soft strategy, which is raising funds, and the other one being distressed properties being a hard strategy, and how you can really start to see how all these skills come together. And this is also why fundamentally I am very, very much worried about people that only take single strategy courses. And if that strategy course is a hard strategy course, because most people aren't able to execute it as well as they think, having just gone through one training usually. However, the other thing is, I think most of us, especially if we want to go into larger deals, it is definitely more challenging to actually raise OPM, especially if it's your first deal or your first few. And that's why it is so important, for everybody to really have a very well-rounded training before they actually embark on really implementing anything. And so a lot of people like to treat fix and flip from a distressed property as a fundamental strategy, or rather as an entry level strategy. There's a difference between the words fundamental and entry level, because a fix and flip is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, because you got to really learn how to assess your own risk tolerance, and as a result, how it shows up later on in a spreadsheet, which I will explore with everybody in the next episode as well. And what I really mean by that is so many times, TV trained flippers, i.e. HGTV, they always miscalculate the numbers. And the biggest thing being what we call holding costs. Okay, holding cost and what actually counts as operational expenses during the renovation process, and what counts as capital expenditure right at the beginning, and what they need a budget for and how they actually run their numbers. So I will share the number analysis in the episodes to come. However, today I really want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between fundamental versus entry level, simply because of the fact that it doesn't matter the size of the property that you end up choosing, okay, or the size of the property that you end up going into, because it could be small single family homes, it could be multifamily, and multifamily also, really by definition, anything more than one door is multifamily residential. However, you can also go as big as giant hundreds and thousands of unit apartment blocks and development, and also commercial. The concept of fix and flip, as covered during the BRRRR process, is simply the ability to create forced appreciation. And that's also why, if you remember, educated investors, we make money when we buy, not when we sell. When we sell is when we actually cash out. However, that's also why, if you remember, during the BRRRR process, I also mentioned that our friends south of the border, meaning our American investors, they call it cash out refinance. And so if you recall, I also call it money in, money out through the BRRRR process. And now, as a result, you have an asset either for free or for almost free, and you have the income for life there. And so going back to fix and flip, these are just some of the bullet points that we tend to highlight, which is clearly a property that either needs work, or if you remember how we started this entire topic, is that you can also seek out sellers and owners that are currently in distressed situations. So they're either personally, financially, emotionally, mentally distressed about a situation that can be solved by solving their real estate challenges. And more often than not, 99% of the times I'm thinking, I mean, that's just my own statistics because that's what it feels like. Most of the times it's due to financial strains, and that's the financial stress that people do get from owning properties that they cannot afford anymore. And so the property doesn't always need work. However, logically speaking, though, most of the times these properties also need some work because if you think about it, most people, if they are already stressed about putting food on the table, do you think home care and home maintenance, let alone rental property care and maintenance, is on top of the priority list? Probably not. And so again, therein lies the spectrum between between how much work is actually needed, and therein also creates the opportunity for investors who have different levels of appetites and different levels of skills and different levels of profit margin that they would like to create through that renovation process. And that's why fix and flip a distressed property to gain forced appreciation is such a huge concept here. And for those of you who are traders, you probably have come across the terms, or you probably understand the terms a lot more. And that's something that I've been learning, as I mentioned, over the last couple of years now. And it's going really well. And we're really excited to be sharing some of those results and some of those trainings as well. Remember, Trust Your Talent is not just about real estate investing. We stand first and foremost for financial education, which means once you understand how money works, you understand how to pick the asset class and how to use each asset class and the strategies available within them to help you create the financial success that you want and that you deserve. And so on this note, by definition, fix and flip really does work in any market situation. And I've really touched on this already, just because I think over the last, especially I guess 12, 14 months now at this point, I think the common complaint and perception is that, oh, there are no deals, or at least there are no good deals. And if there are no good deals, and all of a sudden on the flip side, oh my goodness, there's multiple offers again, all over the marketplaces. And that's the thing. We always say that there are 4 aces in a deck of cards, and each deck of cards has 52 cards. And so when you have to start flipping through a deck of cards to find all your aces, potentially you can find all 4 aces up front. They could be scattered, or sometimes you might have to comb through 48 cards to find the last 4 cards to be all your aces. So my point here is they are out there because you do need to be able to recognize not just physically distressed properties. However, I'm going to just say this, in my opinion, and based on my experience and looking around the results that our students have created so far, like as I keep saying, good deals are found, great deals are created. Okay, good deals are found and great deals are created. And so the idea really is that in any market situation, we are able to create good deals for ourselves. However, that requires training, that requires support. And I remember a couple of weeks ago when I was speaking at the multifamily conference, I discussed and shared my very first deal in the US, and that was a 144 unit mobile home park that they were asking $5.4 million back then, 10 years ago now at this point. And after all is said and done, zero money down, zero of my own money down. I did have to borrow money. And after all is said and done, post the 14 months process of acquisition, that property was appraised at almost $8.3 million. And so the idea really there is that, again, great deals are created and structured, and they're not just simply found. You might be able to find great opportunities. However, in order for that to truly work for you, if you remember, opportunities are everywhere, just like listings are everywhere. There are a dime a dozen. However, how do you make sure that you structure it based on the exit strategy that you've chosen for yourself is even more important, because your exit strategies determine how you make money and how much money you make. However, at this point, this is why if you also, you can see I'm starting to connect a lot of the dots because we built a lot of foundation together over the previous, 22 episodes now, because today is episode 23. So if you are slightly lost and confused, make sure you go back to the previous episodes so that the dots will connect a lot better for you and the picture becomes a lot clearer. Because again, when it comes to forced appreciation, if you decide to flip at the end, we tend to count it in terms of wheel of wealth into the earned income bucket, because you are likely trading hours for dollars, even if you're not doing the physical labor work yourself during the renovation. Okay, you are still actively managing the renovation and the project and the acquisition and sale process before and after. And so some people, when they do the BRRRR process, as I mentioned before, really the BRRRR process keeps the money and the equity in the equity or portfolio income bucket. And so for those of you who are traders, as how I started this tangent in a way, not really tangent, because they do all tie in together. You understand the phrases realized gains versus realized losses, or on the flip side, unrealized gains and unrealized losses. Okay, so a bit of a tangent. However, coming back here, do just want to share that thought process so you understand fix and flip and the BRRRR process works in any market conditions. Okay, and for most people, if your exit is to sell, that is a bona fide fix and flip. And so by definition, it's really a short-term strategy. And most of the times in the real estate investing world, as I've learned over the years, is that short-term is really anywhere from 3 to 12 months. 3 to 12 months. Obviously, if you got a budget in and factor in during your deal analysis the items like holding costs. Okay, holding costs typically would include your utility bills, your taxes, your debt servicing, and your insurance as well. And on the note of insurance, I want to make sure that nobody here that's watching this cheaps out on a renovation insurance. So many cheapo investors didn't understand that and didn't even learn about it. And even if they did, they choose to go with the lowest quote possible. And then during the construction or renovation process, there are accidents that happen. There are situations that come up. And all of a sudden, if you are talking to your insurance company, hoping and thinking that it's going to cover these type of incidents, they're not. And in fact, you might actually get fined, and now you have a record of a fraudulent insurance policy on your name or in your records, simply because of the fact that you were not honest about it. I know it typically costs about twice as much. And this is also why you need to learn to control the entire budget from controlling the project timing really, really well. And so most short-term fix and flips usually takes about 3 months in length. Okay, so anything longer than 6 months, you likely should have had other exit strategies identified before you even went into it. And so here is a quick example for you. In September and October 2019, 2 months. In those 2 months, we picked up 3 different projects that we were thinking about flipping because we were anticipating a large expense coming due with our other projects. So we leveraged flipping to generate a lump sum amount of cash so that we can actually cover some of the upcoming big bills that way. Now, if you remember what happened, what went down was out of the 3 projects, 2 of them we were able to fix, flip, sold, no problem, cashed out. And then the 3rd property, just because there were delays in materials and labors, all of a sudden COVID lockdowns happened and we did not actually get to sell it. However, the moment lockdown happened and the moment we knew that we could start showing properties again, we decided to basically turn it into a long-term rental. Now, the idea is flipping it, selling it versus renting out long-term. Those are sometimes very, very obvious. However, with that property, because the original intent was not to renovate it up to the standards of a midterm or even a short-term rental, and that's why it was an obvious strategy. Now, the other thing is we also could have sold it once we could start doing showings, that we could have sold it based on other exit strategies, which I will cover in the next episode as well. And we could have sold it based on seller financing. So as a VTB straight up, or as a lease option, or commonly known as rent to own. However, the whole point here that I'm looking to make is that it's a short-term strategy. Most of the times, if it's just cosmetic renovations, you probably want to budget in and out of 3 months in total. 3 months in total. And so within that 3 months, let's just call it hypothetically 12 to 13 weeks. The actual work time frame is likely 2 to 4 weeks at the very max. Okay, at the very max. So the beginning point of this particular project or fix and flip should really start the clock should start counting the day your offer is accepted. And the end date would be the day you actually get off title, which means that's the day that you've successfully exited that property 100%. Okay, so that time frame is usually 12 to 13 months if you want to do some sort of cosmetic renovations. However, for some of you who are burring it, it might be a 3 to 6 months process when it comes to a small single family home, or if you're duplexing it in different provinces, or in out west, we call it suiting the property. Or again, if you're going into multi-family or multi-unit residentials, as we call it, that stabilization process could actually take a long time because you simply have to go through the different leases originally when you first take over, and then you got to schedule out based on likely a Gantt chart so that you can do the renovations during either turnover or when you are evicting the tenants. Okay, but again, that also counts as turnover because you don't really want to do any work when a non-paying tenant is, or a horrible tenant is still occupying the space. Okay, and that's usually what you want to do. And the other side of that is most people will do it when they know that they've got a good long-term tenants that have already been in the unit. So with that said, this can be a long-term business. What that means also is that from a tax standpoint, okay, once again, you all know I'm Canadian. However, for my international audience, make sure you double check with your accountant if you want to become an active flipper in this particular case. What that means is you want to make sure that your corporate structure supports that and your accountant understands the tax code in your province, in your country, or in your state, in your county, so that it's treated as active income rather than capital gain income, because then you'll be taxed at a very, very different level. And we always say it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you get to keep. And so when you're able to control the time frame, directly, it impacts the return on investment. It directly impacts the return on investment. Once again, when I'm sharing the number examples with you in the episodes to come, you will understand what that means, and we'll explore the different ways of looking at the numbers, okay? And last but not least, you don't need to use any of your money. You don't need to use any of your money. You can use all the OPM in this particular case. And now, OPM, remember, it doesn't always have to be private. It could be institutional money. There are lots of lenders out there these days. They will offer you purchase plus improvement mortgages right off the bat. And if you do not qualify for those, make sure that you, in your power team, whether it's a bank or a mortgage broker who we like, have access to purchase plus improvement, even if they are two different lenders. Okay, so on that note, I just want to give you a quick glance in terms of what's to come. Okay, so in terms of calculations on a fix and flip, these are usually the numbers, or the categories rather, that we would include in there. And so for some of you who might be watching this, walking, doing dishes, or doing chores, Harlem. That's fine. I learned the same way too. Make sure you take a screenshot of this, or if you're taking notes, I know a lot of you have told me that you enjoy taking notes alongside with these. So make sure that you take down the notes so that you can come back and review these as well. And in the next episode, I will also make sure we pick up where we left off. On that note, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me again for today's episode. And in terms of raising funds, this is why I shared the slides with you, because when it comes to raising funds, you also are able to leverage. I'm just going to bring it back to the last slide as well, how this strategy works and why it works. Okay. And so really all these things, if you learn to speak to them, you are effectively raising funds with the potential from a potential money partner in this particular case, because a lot of the times people are fearful simply because they don't understand what they're seeing, what they're hearing. And so when you are able to logically and procedurally walk them through items such as these, so that it's kind of what we call these days educational marketing, so that you are able to help your potential money partner overcome some of the fears and questions right off the bat. And if for nothing else, it also shows them, once again, that you are taking real estate investing very seriously. You're taking the time to watch My Daily Dose with Tim. You're taking the time to invest in your own education so that they feel a lot safer right off the bat. At the end of the day, even though we love real estate as an asset class, this is still a people's business, okay? This is still a people's business. And then after that, you can share with them the way I'm sharing with you on how the numbers come about before presenting an actual deal or presenting a past example. Because so many of you, this might be your first deal and you might have to leverage your coaches or your mentors' deals as your examples so that you can speak to them properly and effectively. Okay, so tonight, what are we at? June 7th, Wednesday, June 7th. I am currently in London, Ontario, and we are having our very first TYT Connect right here in London, Ontario. Once again, I will be posting the Eventbrite link in the comments section so that you know how to get yourself registered and how to get yourself there. And if you're wondering if this is the right networking event for you, really, if you are thinking about investing in real estate, or if you've already started, doesn't matter what level you're at, you're a beginner, you're an intermediate, you're advanced, or even if you are a business owner, doesn't matter what type of business, come out and mingle, make new connections, and deepen your existing ones. And this is the environment and the community that we are looking to foster at all times. So with that said, have a great rest of the day. I hope to see some of you tonight at Chop Steakhouse right here in London, Ontario, and live well, everybody.